I spent the last 30 days holed up alone in my cave making an impossible game, and today I wrapped it up in a crusty zip file and sent it to Steam for approval. But what do I mean by an impossible game? Well, I'm sure you remember the world's hardest game, or have maybe heard of Getting Over It or Jump King. Games that are very frustrating, but for some reason you love the pain and keep crawling back. I've been working on a wholesome game for a couple of years now, but it's time to take a very unwholesome detour into the realm of frustration and hatred, more specifically, hell. That's right, what better environment for your rage game than the depths of the abyss itself? I'm thinking we'll have characters with massive hands that need to climb their way out with each joystick on the remote controlling one hand. Kinda like Getting Over It, but with two hands instead of a hammer thingy. And to make things more challenging, we're gonna add multiplayer too, because, well, making a game in 30 days wasn't hard enough already. Let's see if we can do it. I first made some really bad sample art, and after a few hours of coding I had something working, and right off the bat, this is pretty tough. I made a little test stage, and I could barely even make it up this chute despite it being 100% possible. Now right now our protagonist looks like a wad of bacon, so I hit the drawing board and turned it into this sad little human. I like to think of him as a mix of Morty and Isaac, since they're two of the most pathetic looking creatures I could think of. It was then time to draw up some obstacles. I had to think to myself, what sort of things would a person find in hell? This line of thinking led me to lava, weapons, skulls, pineapple pizza, and stripper poles, along with some other stuff. All that got thrown in the game and we have an interesting little intro section. We've got a substance abuse pit, a Taco Bell tower, everything you could ever want. Whenever something was a bit too easy, I'd just make the gap slightly larger to maximize player suffering. New playtesters were unable to even make it past this pit, so I've definitely done my job properly. You'll also notice this cool parallax effect, where when the player moves, the background moves too, to help make things look more 3D. It was then that I encountered my first major bug, and it came in the form of this crusty sock. I found that if you squeeze and hug the sock just right, you start to levitate into the air. Words cannot describe how astounded I was when this first happened.
Look, up in the sky, it's a bird!
It's a plane!
It's Superman! Yes, it's Superman!
It turns out when you wrap around something and move the joystick upwards, the hands try to move upwards. The hands push the sock, which push the head, the hands then move upwards, and the cycle repeats until little Icarus has achieved flight. To prevent this, I made a script called anti-hug and put it on anything not nailed to the ground. If the player tries to hug these, I do fancy physics magic to forcefully promote social distancing. By now it's about day 5 and I'm thinking, our little scumbag looks kinda lonely. I made him some pals with good old copy-paste and roped them together. You can now traipse through the incarnation of suffering itself with your friends like you've always wanted to. We then have bug number 2 show its ugly face. I wanted the ropes to collide with the environment like this, so they drag, but this leads to some issues. First off, ropes in Unity are pretty lame. It's just a bunch of rectangles stuck together with hinges, so they aren't very strong. Even if I did painstakingly redesign them, the players could get stuck if they ever straddle a suspended obstacle, so I decided to make them show up only in the background, and the players will be stuck together with an external force that's invisible. I then decided our little victims, despite their sad faces, were a bit expressionless, and I wanted to give them some fun little emotes. But before we dive into that, I've got a word from our sponsor for today's video, Southern New Hampshire University. One of my biggest personal regrets is having a passion for games and art, but going to school for engineering. Sure, I learned programming and some complex math, and that's been helpful, but I wish I had gone for a game development or CS degree instead. And if you're in a similar boat where you may want to look for a game development career, SNHU is a pretty sweet deal. They have one of the largest accredited nonprofit online degree offerings, which translated to English means remote and not super expensive. You don't need to move to New Hampshire wherever that is, and you don't need to sell your soul to afford it. They have courses covering programming, physics, graphics and interface design, basically everything you need so you don't have to learn it all on your own, which, trust me, is exhausting. The programs are flexible, so you don't have to be in classes at 7 AM, and if you're already in school, a good chunk of your credits will transfer over. The courses are of course led by industry professionals, so you'll get those sweet connections. If this sounds interesting at all, there is a link in my description below, so feel free to check that out. Now where were we? Oh yeah, making little heathens cry. I made some sad faces and recorded a pathetic whimper. Here it is in action. Nice. You can also hold down the button to make him cry continuously. No. Beautiful. At this point I'm feeling confident about the timing and decided to get a little fancy with it. Lights in 2D games are kinda hard to do, but luckily I have a system all set up for my other games, so I threw it in here. Here's a little sample of how much it adds. We go from the stripper rave cave looking like this to having something like this. It took a whole day to get it set up, but I think it was worth it. And it's now time for the most important part of a game's life, the Steam page, which I think a lot of videos don't give a ton of insight into, so here's your peek behind the screen. Steam is, of course, a platform that sells games, and it has this cool Steamworks site where you pay $100 to post a game. I forked over the money and got to work on some cover art so that we'd look professional. I decided on the name Daunting Inferno. That is, until my lawyer smacked me on the head and said it was too close to Dante's Inferno, which is trademarked by EA. So I ended up with This Is Hell instead. I made the art into a million variations that Steam requires, wrote a description, captured some GIFs of gameplay, and that's it. You can now view the Steam page, watch my goofy trailer, and hit wishlist to get an email when it comes out. I wanted to make it $6.66 since I thought that was funny, but I guess Steam is an evangelical establishment or something because they don't allow it. So sorry guys, $6.99 it is. But anyways, it's time to add more regions. Think to yourself, what are the most hellish places on Earth? That's right, the DMV. We've also got a flesh pit, meat grinder, casino, and so many more, but I don't want to spoil it all. I really packed in as much as I possibly could on this perilous hike. So we then come to an interesting question. What's the story? Sure, you're escaping hell, but what happens at the end? Again, no spoilers, but I added in some NPCs to help out a little bit. Allow me to introduce you to... Oh, sorry, let me put them together real quick. Allow me to introduce you to treachery, fraud, violence, heresy, anger, greed, gluttony, lust, and limbo. You'll recognize these as the 9 circles of hell from Dante's Inferno, now in demon form. I drew up these little speech bubbles and made it so when you walk up, they chat with you. I also made a system where if you fall really far and come back, they'll make fun of you. Also, I had a little chat with Treachery, and he told me that if you don't like the video and click the follow button, he'll stab you in the face. So now we reach our next big hurdle, music. I have absolutely no music writing skills whatsoever, and I knew if I tried to make something, it would be awful. So I decided, you know what? We're in hell. Let's just have commercials. The idea was then born to have a radio show going the whole time where they blast commercials and play some free songs that I find online. I wrote out about 100 commercials and tried my best to make them funny. I'll let you be the judge. I recorded them on Audacity and used a bandpass filter to make it sound more tinny and radio-y. I'll just play you a little clip of what it sounds like once they're all together, along with some gameplay. Hello there, listeners. It's now time to announce the winning lottery numbers. Today, the winning digits are 7, 32, 6, dolphin, and the concept of sorrow. Don't think that's fair? Welcome to hell. Now back to our messages. And there you have it. Not the best in the world, but not bad for making 100 of them in 2 days. I then went just absolutely crazy on smaller features. We've got a pause menu with some options. Some people on TikTok liked it more with no arms, and while I can't say I agree, I left it as an option. We've got a speedrunning timer, an FPS display, this little button where you can submit a bug and have it go straight to my Discord channel, a main menu with this little animation, some particle effects to add smoke and ashes and stuff, and of course, the final obstacle, the stairway to heaven. Now guys, there are lots of really challenging spots in the game, but this one is by far the most cruel and inhumane. If you fall up here, you're going all the way back down, and it's so easy to mess up. The staircase itself has some inherent structural issues that make it a real challenge. And with that, we have a completed game, somehow done in 30 days with a few hours to spare. I've got lots of stuff I want to add to it, namely online multiplayer, more commercials, and some more dialogue, but I think the core gameplay in Initial Mountain is pretty much set in stone. And it's fun. They're very challenging, but definitely satisfying once you manage to get good at maneuvering. Now guys, we're at a very interesting point here. I meant for this to be a fun, goofy project, but it's turning into a pretty serious game that I think actually has some potential. It's been received surprisingly well on TikTok and already has a couple thousand wish lists. And people say 5 to 10,000 is all you really need for Steam to push you forward on a pedestal and make your game successful. So if anyone out there thinks it seems fun to suffer with your friends, it releases on November 1st for PC, with Mac, Linux, and mobile coming as soon as I can. So feel free to head on down in the description and hit the wishlist button. And let me know in the comments below if there's anything else you'd like to see in the game. I've thought it'd be fun to have a tag, racing, or even volleyball mode, and I'm open to ideas. The experience really was a blast, and I'm excited to get it out to you guys to try it. As always, make sure to hit all the magic YouTube buttons to help the algorithm like me, and, well, I'll see you in hell. Hello everyone, the time has come to shout out our eternally gracious patrons. I'd like to give a super special shout out to our Goblin Deity patrons for October 2022, namely Zachary Neese, Zach Fox, Sarah, Joey Mayer, Charles Philibig, TX Redcore, Riley Smith, Clinton Barr, Brett Hudson, Julian Dickon, Jackson Singleton, Matthew Spencer, Jace, Joseph Scobby, Captain Hurricane, and Zynoland. You're all amazing and I appreciate all of the support.